continuing on how gangstalking can be defeated. Um, it's going to take some time. Obviously, it will take a couple of generations. As long as there's a money-making scheme, there's always going to be a problem. There's always going to be an incentive for somebody to carry out their attack. So, as victims, we're going to have to do most of the work and try and come up with better strategies and try and scratch our heads and try and think. Um, so, just in terms of generations, I mean, this is just my take on what the different generations have to be. It's a thumbsuck. It's not really a fact. It's just my take on the thing. The first generation was the dinosaur age, just right from the start up until maybe 2005. The thing with this generation was that there's no hope. There was no way to share information, or maybe all the information was centralized until blogging, social media, and maybe YouTube came around, and then it's easier, obviously, for the word to be spread out. And I would say we're currently in the second generation where we've got all this technology, we've got all these ways of sharing information, but we must shift a gear. We must do a little bit more than just blogging. Um, we must do a lot more than just maybe just sitting and just crying about the problem. So it's all about trying to improve the quality of information and awareness. And then maybe as the targeted individual community, maybe just coming together and being maybe a little bit more united as well. I mean, it's a common sense thing, and maybe a bit of an evolved mindset as well. So that's what the next generation should be about. If we are maybe if we have a best chance of winning and making this problem to go away. So just in terms of the community, I think most of us have moved from isolation. Isolation being that it's easier to find information, so there's a lot of support groups, there's a lot of forums, but the actions are still mostly just, you find information online and then maybe you try and contribute to a forum and maybe even try and spread the word, but there's not much else that a victim does from there. Um, so if one was just to take a step back and go, but most victims were at some point professionals. They had normal lives, they had normal jobs. Some of them were software developers, some of them were whatever they were doing, engineers, marketing, medical field. Those skills are not being used. They've just unproductive. They've just been lost, and it's understandable that it's a physical. You're not in a good position where you can contribute, where you can make stuff happen because you're always sick, you're always under attack. But the first thing as a community, I think, is to remind ourselves that we were once, most were once working, good jobs and have got a lot of skills. They can probably try and make those skills count against the fight. Um, the other thing is that we kind of are not conscious of how world or how small the world has become through technology. It's an old saying. I mean, we probably have heard this a couple of times before that it's a small world. You can link up to somebody anywhere else in the world right now. We can almost have a replica of a world online. So we're not really isolated. If I think it's probably maybe a mindset change to see ourselves as scattered individuals who can come together, sort of online. Another thing is, um, I think all of us almost fall into this trap of trying to create a blog or trying to write information. But what if a professional writer was to do that? What if somebody who's a targeted individual and was maybe once involved in the entertainment industry or was once a script writer? Imagine how much of a difference that would make instead of just maybe an average Joe who's not trained to write, who's not trained to who doesn't do writing for a living. Um, so we've got to try to ask ourselves, like, why are there no targeted individuals who are using their professional skills? I mean, otherwise this whole fight would be going a lot quicker. It would be moving on to the next level a lot quicker. Um, so it's all about just moving away from just blogging and maybe spreading the word and reacting from the pain to thinking, also broadening our thinking towards assets, creating more tangible assets besides just blogs. Assets such as having data and stats. Right now, the fight is all in the dark. We don't know how many targeted individuals are there. We don't know where they are. We don't have the numbers. I mean, obviously, government officials and everybody else is going to do their best to sort of hide this information from all of us. Um, Another type of or another category of assets would be like, as I mentioned before, just using our professions again, our professional grade craft again. Um, Imagine if you were once a psychologist and you decided that I'm actually going to help, I'm actually going to be a dedicated targeted individual psychologist who helps people, giving them professional psychological advice. Or another good example is maybe software developers now. I mean, most of the stuff we're doing is online, but yet if you look at most of our blogs, I don't feel comfortable saying this sort of thing, but it could be better. I mean, a lot of the information could look a little bit more modern. The styling, everything else could look a little bit more fresh. Could look like an actual professional made the thing. And then another category of assets is just having deeper insights. For example, how does the actual gang stalking work? How much does a typical gang stalker get paid? That in itself is not useful information, but it's a deeper insight into the problem as to why a neighbor would sort of, you have a friend for many years and this friend suddenly abandons you because they got paid, literally sold you out. Um, Sort of just building all these assets of key data, demographic information, like how long does it take for you, or how long did it take for a victim to know that they're a victim, um, and how long have they been a victim? How do they deal with it? What time of the day do they get attacked? Um, a lot of the information that it's not one person, not one victim can sort of know everything. So if we have these assets, um, you know, of trying to help each other out. Also, another one would be how do they die? How do you actually die? Is it from cancer? Is it from what other type of disease is it? Um, it's probably gonna have to take a lot of unity from us as TIs, but the phrase is probably overused. Unity is power. It's a little bit too vague and maybe put out of context. We know that we have to come together. We know that we have to sort of help each other, and we are doing that already. But what we're lacking is a lot of shared goals and a sense of a mission. All we have right now is some kind of a wish. We wish this thing goes away. That's natural. That's fair. I mean, it's normal. The only goal we have right now is almost a wish. We want this thing to stop, which is fair. But we don't have finer grained like strategic goals. We don't have plans as to how to maybe break the goals down into little smaller bits and pieces that are sort of manageable or realistic. An example of shared goals would be maybe like for a new victim that's going to come in the future. If there's a way for them to reduce their time for them to know from maybe 4 to 3 years to maybe a few months, which is probably the number one biggest killer right now. That there's a misdiagnosis of this problem. Most of them are falling into the schizophrenic or mental illness group, whilst they could have found out quicker. They wouldn't have lost a lot of money. They wouldn't have lost a lot of friends. They wouldn't have lost their sanity. And we have a slightly more empowered next generation of victims. And also another sort of kind of goal that we can share as victims sort of to build on for the future is maybe a variety of information, a variety of sharing information, different ways in which we're sharing this information, the depth of information that we have. We've got no, like I said before, we've got no stats at the moment. We've only got story. We only thing we have is blogs and videos that are saying, this is hard, this is difficult, this is sad. Um, maybe changing our culture a little bit to being that of maybe being a little bit more, I would say, more of the mind and less of the emotion. It's very difficult. I mean, it's a problem that's painful to go through. It's psychologically damaging, but maybe a bit of a change of a culture, and all of us sort of, in terms of unity, having some kind of a shared culture. So it's about moving away from victims that are just dying, and maybe trying to use all our skills and trying to bring all our actual professional skills together, and trying to have a lot more tangibles, and then understanding that it will take a generation at a time to sort of trying to win this sort of thing. And this is going to mean an evolving mindset. I mean, it's not what we're doing right now is correct in terms of trying to spread the word. But the one thing maybe is ownership, that all victims maybe must have this sort of thing, that understand that actually nobody cares. The problem is not going to go away. Time is not going to solve the problem. This has gone on for almost 50 years now, and nothing has changed. Because I think in the previous generations, we all sat back and went, somebody will do it, the government will do it, the police will do it. But if we have an evolved mindset, maybe that of almost like battle, like almost like warfare type of mindset, where first, we kind of have this great desire to win, and we understand that this is probably going to take a long while. This is probably going to take a long, long, long time. But we have to try and win every little fight step by step. That kind of mindset that we've got to have evolve into. And again, maybe change from from just feeling sorry for ourselves, and change from just writing blogs, and change from just almost being too one-dimensional about the whole thing, to maybe producing tangible assets that are useful, that can help us fight, that can help this whole thing go a little bit easier. I mean, one of the assets would be like high quality information or deeper insights into the whole problem. Um, I'm actually not aware of apps that the TI community uses to help them out. Maybe like a budding app to keep track of what another TI is doing, or if somebody's still alive, if there's a register of who's passed away, and those kind of things. Um, Again, in terms of just taking you know mindset of trying to look at this thing in a bigger picture. Um, it's all about generations. I think we're now in the second generation. I mean, it's what I have here on the screen is my take on the whole thing. It could be different. I mean, it could be looked at in any other way. We're currently in the second generation where we've had decentralized information for a while, meaning anybody can share information a lot easier. So technology is not the problem. Blogging or YouTubing is not the problem. But we've got to try to shift the gear. I mean, in anticipation for maybe the next gen where the crime is going to be changing. And the changing crime, again, the years and the numbers are all just thumbs up. It's just me just making all of this up. Um, but if one was just to sit back and think what's going to happen 5 years or 6 years or 8 years from now, the first thing is that, I mean, with gangstalking, the way it works, a lot of non-victims or anybody who's normal would have heard more or less the same story. They would have known somebody who's a friend of a victim who went through the same kind of stuff, and also the fact that the crime is going to be getting out of control, getting out of hand. Um, so the general public at some point is going to begin to wake up and go, hang on, but we've seen this. I know 5 people now that have gone through this sort of thing, simply because, I mean, gang stalking, you've got to go pollute, you've got to go report, you've got to go and try and sabotage the guy at work, sabotage his social life, sabotage his family. Also, another thing is that the career, I mean, gang stalking is now a career for most people. I mean, if as a victim you just sit back and you ask yourself, when it comes to voice to skull, how many different voices or how many different people that have stalked you, how many neighbors you think are involved. Um, Also, the fact that there's younger people getting involved, and it becomes an actual money making, the only qualifiable skill for them, that they're not able to do anything else outside of gang stalking. It's actually like the only career option viable for them. So there is some kind of hope if we look at it from that angle. That you know, if we were to just sit back, the crime will grow. I mean, it will take its natural course, and it will. Everybody's trying to get into the money. Everybody's trying to make free money, out of just stalking or doing minimum amount of work. The number of victims is obviously going up. Number of neighbors that are stalking, is also going up. But again, this is not going to solve the problem on its own. I mean, if we looked at what happened in the first generation, technology didn't solve the problem. Blogging and writing, people do know. A lot of people pretend that this is not a problem. A lot of people, psychiatrists are now pretending this problem doesn't exist. They've known for a long time. They've known for a while. So I think having more victims and having more stalkers is not necessarily going to solve the problem. Which means that we're probably going to have to capitalize on this third generation, where a lot more people begin to see, or a lot more people are being asked to stalk. But an average victim has got to be prepared for that sort of thing, and has got to be a little bit more tactful as to how they handle this phase. We still have to do the work. This is not going to go away because because time goes on. Again, learning from the dinosaur age, where there was no information, but there were a lot of people who knew. Law enforcement knew. They used this technology on people. They knew what was going on. Surely they would have told their friends. Surely they would have told some of their neighbors. So, unfortunately, as victims, we're going to have to still do a lot of the work. Again, on the good side, the general public is being exposed to this sort of thing. They're seeing a lot more people being harassed. So moving into the fourth generation, again, this is just me trying to look into the future, just in a very optimistic way, and going, the problem might be so obvious by then, that it might, I don't know, it might actually be maybe one out of maybe 25% of the population might be victims by then, or whatever, 10%, whatever number. A lot of people will eventually start standing up and protesting. but it's still not going to help us, even if it's whatever 10 years from now, because for the same problems that we had over the past 50 years, that government is still probably going to try and deny. Are they suddenly going to try and destroy all the infrastructure? Are they going to destroy all the satellites? Are they going to make the secretive technology, this amazing remote neural monitoring or voice to skull, is that technology going to be sort of open to the public? I don't think so. Um, the other thing is that most first generation victims will begin to die. So again, it just comes back to the point that it's we can't just sit back and go, we will wait for the future, we'll wait for somebody to sort of come in and do stuff for us. And also, it's not enough to just blog. Um, Maybe being a little bit more, having a bit of a warfare mindset, uh, having that battle mindset of maybe splitting this up into little generations, like, you know, what can we be doing today that will impact 5 years from now? How much work can we be doing today? So, to win the war, we're probably going to have to learn from mistakes, previous maybe 10 years or 50 years or whatever. Um, Maybe come back and be a little bit more united in a sense of goals, in a sense of saying, how can we win this? How can we start having assets? How can we start having tangible stuff that actually makes the problem go away? Um, yeah, and that's pretty much it.